Hi, everyone. Before the fight begins, make sure to follow us on Spotify, Apple, or wherever you get your podcasts. Rating us 5 stars and leaving a review really helps us out. So for those of you who have done it, thank you. And for those of you who are about to do it, we appreciate it. Enjoy today's episode and make sure you stick around to the end to find out what's coming next. Now on to the show.
Nick, the first rule of podcasting is to be a middle-aged white dude. The second rule
middle-aged
of podcasting is to be a middle-aged white dude. The third rule is only 2 dudes may podcast at a time. The fourth rule is to find a co-host who annoys you. The fifth and final rule, the pod goes as long as it needs to go. And by the time we're done, our listeners will hate us.
Yeah, that's probably true.
Welcome to Read, Watch, Play. Your dive into the stories we love and how they're adapted. This episode is about nothing, as we are contractually obligated to not talk about it. This is episode 35, and we are covering Fight Club. I'm here with everyone's favorite space monkey, Nick Hinkson. My name is Randy Berridge. Let's go.
I just want to point out that you wrote that it's episode 35, and we are covering Fight Club.
Yeah. You know, I was in a pinch this morning trying to get some of these notes tidied up. Just sometimes you just let Google Docs or whatever you're working in pick up what you're trying to lay down. And you know, sometimes it's just a dick. It's just like, you know, I'm trying to say covering. Just fix it. Fix it on your own.
We need more AI integrated into Google Docs.
I don't know, man. There's AI everywhere now. This is the most.
Not in
don't
Google
get
Docs.
me on my old man corner. What are we covering today? What's the source material? What's the adaptation?
We're not covering anything, Randy.
It's true. Just gonna sit here, look at each other, and drink coffee.
It's not a bad morning. No, we're covering 1996's smash hit by Chuck Palahniuk, Fight Club. Same namesake as the movie, actually. I know you have some pretty cool background on this one, so I'll leave it there, and we can move on.
I'm impressed at your correct pronunciation. I watched the same 3-second clip of Chuck's last name this morning, and I still feel uncertain as to how to say it. I'm pretty sure you crushed it on first try. It's like Palahniuk? I don't know. It's different than what I want to say, and I don't know how to say it anymore. But Fight Club.
You can, CP.
Yeah, CP. Lil P. Fight Club tells the story of an insomniac white-collar worker who, despite acquiring all the material items that tell him he has made it, is starting to feel disenchanted with his IKEA single-serving life. This is until he meets Tyler Durden. Tyler is everything he wants to be and more, and their friendship takes us on a journey that upends his life after they form an underground fight club. As more masses of men leading lives of quiet desperation join the club, Tyler loses control of the club and himself. That is Fight Club. Pretty one-to-one. What'd you say?
It's a good synopsis.
Yeah, I mean, I stole the last line from Henry David Thoreau, but it felt apt. It's not my own doing. But very apt for this story. Do you remember seeing Fight Club the first time?
No. I was thinking, and my question to you is this the ultimate bro movie? Or is it at least on your Mount Rushmore of bro movies? Because I'm thinking you've got this, you've got The Godfather, for sure. Like, just movies that every bro has to bask in.
Ken in Barbie is recommending these movies to Barbie.
Exactly. In the Casa Mojo Dojo house.
Yeah, they definitely have the Fight Club poster on their wall. Like, to your point, how many guys had the Fight Club poster on their college dorm room wall?
How many guys still want to be Brad Pitt in Fight Club?
Yeah. How many Randys still have the Fight Club poster on their wall, despite the annoyance of their fiance? Maybe me. I don't know. Who's to say? But you're right. I mean, this is it's a total dude movie. I mean, it makes sense because of the thematic elements of this movie. I think resonate more with men.
Yeah.
But it did have that cult explosion that I think coincided with like the DVD market too, where it was just like every guy owned this movie. And it was just also like in that era of just like quotability where like you just know lines from this
Yeah.
movie and you know scenes from this movie. Is now when we talk about that, you see Brad Pitt and you want to be Brad Pitt. And, you know, we're 2 years out from Ocean's 11, which if you want to hear us gush about Clooney and Pitt, just go listen to that one. But I mean, there was just a storm of things that I think propelled this into the dude lore of history.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, definitely. I mean, I think people miss kind of the point of the movie and the book, to be honest with you. But it does talk. I mean, they're very male centric themes, even outside of just the whole Fight Club aspect of it and the anarchy side of things. So, I mean, it makes sense.
Yeah, I had this as a rapid fire, but I'll just shoot it to you now. Where does this stand in the canon of your favorite Pitt and your favorite Norton? Like where are we at? And not to maybe divulge too much on your, high level thoughts on the movie, and that even though that inevitably will, but is this a top tier Pitt for you performance?
I don't think it's one of Pitt's best performances. And that's not knocking what he did in this movie,
Yeah.
right? I just think he's had some that are just next level. And this was just really, really good.
Mhm.
It's definitely my top 3 of Pitt, though.
Yeah.
Norton, I don't even think it's in my top 3 Norton performances. My sleeper best Norton film is Kingdom of Heaven.
Yeah, it's a great movie.
I thought you don't even see his face, but he absolutely destroyed it in that movie.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I had as like a question for you here, and kind of like this interest up of like, is Norton like a sneaky one of the greatest actors of the 21st century? Like he doesn't always come to mind because I don't think he has like the movie star persona that a Pitt has. But if you go through his filmography and look at just like some of the performances he's dished in, he's got a resume.
He does. I think his biggest downfall was, from everything I can tell, from what I read, is he's not a very likable
He sounds like an
person
intense person.
in Hollywood. Yeah, he's difficult to work with. And that probably is preventing him from being considered one of the all times. I mean, you said, just go through his performances.
Yeah.
Has he won Academy Awards for those?
For Fight Club, or just has Norton in general won? I don't know. Maybe he won something for the 25th hour. Let's see. Edward. I mean, this is topical as the Oscars are tonight.
Are they really?
Yeah.
I had no idea. I'm really plugged into movie society, as you could tell.
Yeah. I'm okay, no. I mean, Academy Awards, he's been nominated for Best Actor once, which was American History X, which is another great movie.
Crazy good.
Traumatized me kind of as a kid. Like, I've been scared of being curb stomped my entire life because of that movie. And
that's fair. And
then I got older and I realized the situations where you might find yourself curb stomped don't happen that often in a normal life.
And it's not the life you lead either.
No, it's kind of like when you're a kid and you think like, man, quicksand is going to be a big deal and I got to watch out for that as I get older. And then you come to realize never going to really run across quicksand.
But if you do, you'll be ready because you've thought about it.
But I thought about it. And then he's had a few supporting actor noms for Primal Fear. It's a great movie. Birdman, and then he's nominated this year. He'll be competing tonight for A Complete Unknown.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Which he was so great in A Complete Unknown. Birdman, I really like too. I was late to the Birdman train. We only watched it maybe 2 years ago, but really enjoyed that.
I've never seen it.
It's good. I don't know. It's a divisive movie, but we enjoy it. But I also really like Michael Keaton a lot. Big Michael Keaton and a Stone guy. So we liked it. Yeah, I mean, in terms of Pitt and Norton, for me, I agree with you. I don't know if this is this is maybe a top 3 Norton for me, but I don't know if it's my favorite of his. I really love Moonrise Kingdom from Wes Anderson. That's maybe my favorite Edward Norton just because he's so goofy in that movie. And then Brad Pitt, it's always going to be Inglourious Bastards for me. Brad Pitt is in an ensemble movie as just like a piece of the puzzle, like in Ocean's 11. There's not many people who do that better than Brad Pitt. In just taking this small role, not even a small role, but just, a member on the roster and just killing it. He's so good at that.
Once Upon a Time in Hollywood is the 2 you just named plus Once Upon a Time in Hollywood are my top 3 Pitts.
The can of dog food throw that he just yeets into, I think that's Mikey Madison's face in that movie. Oh, just elite end to the film. The flamethrower comes out while Leo's in the pool. Isn't he like rehearsing lines while drinking like frozen margaritas? And the girl just comes out of the house like on fire into the pool. Oh, what a great end of a movie. Back to Fight Club. I don't know if I want to talk about the twist in its totality yet, but I do want to ask you, like, was this in a way a Sixth Sense type of situation where it was so widely known what the twist was that heading into it, you already knew? Or like we were so young that when we saw this, like, I don't even remember, honestly, if I knew the twist was coming. I don't think I did. I think I don't know. Do you? Yeah, it's just kind of been there.
Well, I mean, we were, 8 when this came out? 9.
Yeah, and I was not watching Fight Club when I was 8.
Right. So the people we were hanging out with at 8 and 9 years old also weren't watching Fight Club.
No,
so
probably not on the whole sleepover, unfortunately.
The whole like buzz around what the twist was and everybody knowing and talking about it had died down, but it hadn't been long enough that it became, immortalized.
Yeah.
So I think we probably hit a sweet spot where by the time we were old enough to watch it, the buzz died down, but it wasn't something that everyone still talked about just in pop culture references. So we were able to experience it.
Yeah. Yeah, I'd agree with that. Because I do feel that I was surprised and didn't see what was coming, but it's just so long ago. It's just like, you just got so much time on your hands as a kid watching so many things that I'm like, I don't know the first time I saw this.
We were probably like 13, 14.
Yeah. It was probably like early 2000s.
In my parents' basement.
Yeah. Got it off, a $5 DVD rack at FYE at the Montgomeryville Mall.
FYE. Wow. Dude, what a throwback.
I used to pillage that $5.99 and under. Just when they used to it's like, how do you even get to the bottom when they would have, it was like not a barrel, but a circular caged thing that was just flooded with DVDs. And I mean, you'd be picking around, and by you, I'd be picking around in there endlessly. Great times. We used to be a country. I don't know if I have any other good intro stuff I want to chat about. I mean, I kind of just want to get into the rapid fires and then get into the book. Does that sound good with you?
Pew pew.
Pew pew. You have any pew pews, or you want me to hit you first?
You hit me.
What's your power animal?
Seal. I want to just lay down and smack my belly and have someone feed me sushi all day.
Just never walk again in your life.
Nope. Just laying around, swimming when I need to.
Are you a wild seal or are you a show seal?
Oh, I'm a show seal. Come on.
A show seal.
Wild seal? Please, Randy. I'm in a zoo, loving life.
I don't know, man. When in like California, when you see those seals that are just kind of just vegging along the coastline, I'm like, seems like a pretty good life. Unless you get eaten by a shark.
Or a whale.
Yeah, I don't really know the full scope of predators for the seals out there, but shout out to any seals listening. I hope you're doing okay. That does seem like a great life.
What's your power animal?
My instinct was a fox, and I don't know why. I like foxes. They're,
what does the fox say?
Yeah, they're a smaller animal. They got an annoying noise that emits from their mouth, which, we're podcasting. We're doing that on a weekly basis. They're a little sneaky and mischievous, which, I had a proclivity for pranks in my high school days. And
That's a nice way to put that.
um, so yeah, I think a fox is my power animal. The seal's a
Okay.
good one. That's probably a way more just relaxing life.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm questioning, I'm like, maybe it should be a koala, because that sounds chill as all hell.
I learned a lot about koalas in Australia when I went to the zoo. And
Lay a fact
what's,
on me.
what's crazy is that these, marsupials, they
Such
can,
a fun word.
I had to throw that in there. They can only eat certain types of like the bamboo strains,
Yeah.
right? There's like 4. There's like hundreds of them, but they can only eat 4 of them. However, those 4 are also a drug that makes them sleepy. So they sleep like 20 hours a day. They wake up and eat, and they're
Yeah.
stuffing their face because they're so hungry from napping for 20 hours.
And just
That-
repeat.
and they just do it again. And that's how they've evolved. And there's just like nothing to do about it other than eat and sleep. So
Yeah.
they were all sleeping. I was at the zoo for like a whole day waiting
Yeah.
for them to wake up. And every time I went over there, they were just out.
Yeah. Just asleep at the wheel. If you asked me what we were going to get into at the start of Fight Club, marsupial vegetation habits were not on my bingo card. But I'm glad we got here.
That was basically my free space. I don't know what you're.
What kind of dining set defines you as a person?
Ooh. Just classic plain fork.
It's not a very
Spoon, knife.
high establishment you have of yourself there.
That's me in a nutshell. It's not about the tools I use to eat it. It's about how
Yeah.
good it tastes in my mouth. I'm more worried about the food than the.
Yeah, I feel that. I don't know if I have a dining set that defines me as a person. When I'm out to eat, I do love a white dining set. It just looks nice. The plating on the food looks great. But at home, I don't really like white too much, even though we have a mix of white and some teal here.
I
like some
think I would
color.
disagree with you, actually.
Hmm.
When I go out, I want different plates that like enhance the experience visually.
Yeah. I guess fit the theme of the restaurant you're at. Yeah.
For sure.
I like that. You got any pew-pews?
How long do you think you're lasting in your first fight at Fight Club?
I mean, against who? Bitch Tits Bob, the dad from Iron Claw, Jared Leto. Who we talking?
Jared Leto.
I think I could do okay against Jared Leto. He doesn't strike me as a fighter.
He doesn't.
He also, I was saying this when we were rewatching this movie, he's like sneaky old because he's like probably mid-20s in this movie. So I'm just thinking about 30 Seconds to Mars time period. And I'm like, in terms of those bands that were big at that time, he was probably like a solid 10 years older as like the front man compared to like the other popular bands at the time.
Oh,
And I'm like, oh, like Jared Leto's kind of an older dude.
He doesn't age.
No.
Like if he would shave his beard and cut his hair, you would think he's still 35. He's like 50 something.
Yeah. Yeah, he's got some crazy genes. But yeah, if I'm at my first night of Fight Club and I have to fight, I'm doing anything I can to fight Angel Face as opposed to anyone else there. What about you?
I'm probably just gonna lay down. Be a seal.
Yeah. Slap your belly. Yeah. No, it wouldn't go well. I couldn't imagine it. I mean, which is a good point. I mean, this is a good lead into the book discussion, as he first came up with the idea for this novel after he was beaten up on a camping trip when he complained to some nearby campers about the noise on their radio. And when he returned to work after the weekend, he was fascinated to find that nobody would mention or acknowledge his injuries, instead saying just commonplace things of, how was your weekend? And he concluded that the reason people react this way was because there was a degree of that the personal interaction was just necessary, and they didn't really know or care enough about what happened on his weekend that he looked like he just got run over by a truck. So it was his fascination with like kind of this societal blocking, which became the foundation for the novel. Um, which is kind of crazy that he actually just got the shit beat out of him and showed up like those scenes in the movie at work,
And
and just nobody cared.
That's wild. That checks out, but that is it's wild to think that that actually happened.
I know. Yeah, I mean, and he said that also like he felt like he was writing this as an act of rebellion, not in the sense of like the themes of the book, but he wrote it in just like a very angry space when he was really struggling to get books picked up by the book industry and by publishers. So he's just dealing with, he said, a lot of rage at the time.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously some of that funneled into the book. And then he has this experience. And after this, I mean, he went on to be like, I don't know, to be honest, like what his book output is now, but he was like a very popular writer, like in these late 90s, early 2000s. Like he was like a cult. I mean, in terms of, you said this was a dude movie, like he's a dude writer.
Yeah.
Like if a guy in middle school or like high school was reading books, like they were probably thinking about like reading him or Kurt Vonnegut or something.
Yeah, fair enough. I mean, to your point, it has been 30 years, almost 29 years since this book came out.
Yeah.
So I have no idea what he's up to these days, if I'm being honest.
No. What is this story about, Nick? I gave the synopsis, but what do you believe that Fight Club is trying to tell us as an audience?
It hurts to get punched in the face.
Yeah.
Soap is made from fat.
Yeah. That was kind of news to me, if I'm honest.
I will say that I'm going to be honest, I don't know if it's true or not.
Yeah.
I'm just assuming it is. And I learned that from this book. Actually, from the movie, because I only read the book for the first time just now. But I believe it. No, I think this book really is about, male loneliness, like a need for a sense of belonging. There's definitely some anti-capitalist messaging going on,
Totally.
maybe a bit in an extreme way here. But yeah, I think male loneliness, the issues that men have with bonding and finding safe spaces that they can, feel their emotions is another. And then maybe just a commentary on the toxic masculinity that goes into something like a Fight Club.
Yeah. Yeah, I'd agree with that. I mean, not to bring it all back to Star Wars, but like I also definitely think of the Yoda, like fear leads to anger, anger leads to hate, hate leads to suffering. And this is telling a story of what especially they're hitting on in the movie of like a generation of forgotten men in this Gen X period, like this feeling of being the middle child and feeling of being left out of society. And, I think the book is, taking the one end of the spectrum of like what this can lead people to do when they feel that their life is meaningless and they have no purpose.
Welcome to 2025.
I know. And like weirdly, I think I don't know if I'd say like the surprise of everyone, but it's always disconcerting when you read or watch something like this from decades ago and the points are still as prescient today as they were then. Like, was that
Maybe
jarring
even
for you
more
reading
so.
through this?
Honestly, I think the state of things in 2025 made reading this book not super enjoyable for me.
Yeah.
This first time read, which maybe should have read it sooner, right? It's with how prevalent it was. Yeah, it was just okay for me.
Too real.
A lot of it felt very real. The other thing is until the end, I don't I think the movie did such a good job that there wasn't really a value add for me to the book because nothing was different.
Mhm.
Um, but yeah, it just felt really real and made me sad. I'm glad I read it though.
Yeah. Yeah, do you think it's, like when you say it's, like, too real, is it a point of, like I don't know, like, where do you land on, like, is it a good thing to deal with and just be confronted with that? Like, this is still going on? Or is there some part of you that is like, "Man, for my own own sake, I just need to, like, check out and not think about this type of stuff right now?" Like, I don't know,
It's a
we
great
watched
question.
yeah, because like, we watched Do the Right Thing, which I don't know if you've ever seen that Spike Lee movie, which
No,
is just it's like a day in the life set in, late '80s New York, big race relations, police brutality type of story, and we had the same conclusion of, like, nearly from that 40 years later, things are not any different than this movie was, like, hitting on, and it's like it's the type of stuff that makes you feel bad, but then I'm like, "But it's important that I, like, confront
it
this
is.
stuff." But it's also like, does that make it an enjoyable read for you? Like, in this case, no, right?
Yeah, I agree with you 100%. You do need to be confronted by it. However, right now it feels like everything is confronting me,
Yeah,
like, like in that sense, the news cycles. Every day it's something new, and then you add this book on top and other pieces of media, and it's just it can get exhausting. But I think when it gets exhausting, that's when you have to really don't check out, don't get jaded,
yeah,
still take the message, but also find ways to do happy things too.
yeah. Yeah, I feel like my positive spin on it is and maybe I'll launch into that with, like, my book thoughts first is, like, this was my first read as well, and, I mean, I felt so locked into this book from page 1. I gave it a 4 out of 5 on Goodreads. If they had the half stars, I'd probably give this a 4.5, and it just had that feeling of, like, I started reading it, and it's just, like, there's no forced feeling of, like, I'm pushing through pages, waiting for the hooks to implant themselves in me, like, I just loved it from the jump, and I just really like that writing style, and I found him to be kind of just, like, poignant with his thoughts. He's very sharp with, like, how he delivers things, but not in a way that's, like, peacocking it, like, he's
Hmm.
thinking about big things and not being showy about it in this book,
Yeah.
which I really like. But my silver lining to, like, reading through something like this is, like, yeah, I think we're still in, you know, an epidemic of, like, male loneliness and men who feel, like, left out of society, and it's leading them, in some cases to be radicalized with things. But there's also, like, the silver lining for me is, like, it makes me very grateful that, like, you and I and all, rest of our friend group, I'm like, "Oh, man, I do have really solid friendships," and how solid that is. And I do think especially with people I know, like, they're more comfortable than what the response was at the time of this book, which is like, I can't even deal with my emotions that I would rather get the shit beat out of me in a fight
Yeah.
than just talk to a friend about, like, how I'm doing and where I'm at. And I do feel like we've made some progress there. Not everywhere in society, but it does make me grateful that, like, I feel like there are some different generations of men being raised, but maybe that's just me being optimistic.
I don't think that's you being optimistic. I do think there's some truth there. I also think, the 90s and 2000s were an interesting time to grow up as a
Yeah,
male. Rub
totally.
some dirt. How many times have we been told in our lives to rub some dirt on it
Yeah.
or just like brush it off or, you know, pain is weakness leaving the body, like all
Yeah.
those cliches.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think that's a good launching point of to this other question is, like, I'm just wondering what was in the water when this was being I had to try so hard there not to say water. What was in the water?
Save water, bring it out.
What was in the water that in 1999 we have, I'm tying together 3 movies here. The Matrix, Fight Club, and Office Space. These are all coming out at a time when, at least in the US, we're experiencing pretty great prosperity.
Mhm.
Financially, the country is in the best shape it's been in a long time. There's been kind of this dot-com boom. We haven't had the crash yet. And things are generally going well in society. We're out of conflicts at this point. There's none going on as we're pre 9/11, we're post Gulf War. And at this point, though, there's this generation and these stories being made about people who are just having these questions of like, is this all there is to life? Is my IKEA set? Is working this white collar job and going home at the end of the day and doing it all again tomorrow? And there's I think The Office Space is taking the comedy satire side of this. Fight Club is taking a radicalized in your face, aggressive style of this story.
Mhm.
And The Matrix is pinning it up as Neo's living in 1999 because it's the peak of society in that movie. And it's not going to get any better and it all crumbles after that. And it's I just what, I don't know. It's curious to me of what was happening at this time that people were just really feeling there has to be more, even though things were going pretty well, at least by 2025 standards.
That's really thought-provoking. I have no idea. I need to think about that. You just hit me with that one pretty hard.
Yeah, I just went on for a while. Sorry.
No, it was really good. I liked it a lot. I haven't considered that all of those came out in 1999. I mean, there was fluoride in the water because,
Yeah.
it's not dangerous and helps teeth and,
Maybe that's what it is.
now they're taking the fluoride out again. Dentist. Big dentist.
Yeah. Big dentistry. Can't go into Severance yet. I don't want to talk about the dentist.
Oh my God. Dude, check out our Severance episodes.
Yeah.
It's just us rambling for 30 minutes, but the show is awesome and we love it.
Yeah. But I don't know. I mean, I think this is I think it's just commenting on that, which is the point of this story, is that these things that we believe are these markers of success, if we're not, and this is going to sound so hokey, if you're not getting in touch with your own emotions and having actual productive human relationships and spending time doing things you love with people you love, your life is going to be hollow. And maybe that is what this generation of writers were hitting on, that just because we're in a time of prosperity and you can own things that signal a happy life, that doesn't mean you have a happy life. And I think that is, what these stories are touching on a little bit, which, like we said, is still relevant just today, even more so. We've only gotten worse from a consumerism standpoint. Way worse.
Yeah. I mean, to your point about something being in the water, maybe it's just that nothing's changed in so long and just, that was right time, right place. But I mean, you could put those 3 movies out now. You probably could put those 3 movies out in the 80s.
Yeah.
And it would probably hit the exact same way.
Totally.
So
I have a question for you of something you brought up earlier. You said that something to the effect of, this is another one of sort of a misunderstood. The point can get lost. And I want to know what you were thinking about that, because I was thinking about that too as I was reading this, having thoughts of Jordan Belfort in Wolf of Wall Street and people valorizing him. And, Norman, I can't even remember his name right now, from American Psycho, we just did. People watch these movies and they're they take the wrong message home occasionally. So what were you thinking about with that one?
that's exactly what I was thinking about. And I feel like we have a tendency to, as a society, the collective we, have a tendency to watch those movies and people come away thinking that guy's badass.
Mm-hmm.
Or that guy was so cool. And it's no, that guy's an ass.
Yeah.
And he represents the worst of humanity, preying on, vulnerable people to make himself rich.
Yeah.
You're idolizing that. It's kind of the precursor to the like alpha movement of dumbasses who like I don't know how they're just dumbasses, and
Is
it's
that
all
is that
about
their tagline? We are the alpha movement. Dumbasses.
honestly it should be. I feel like Red Foreman from That 70s Show, like
Yeah.
dumbass, like
Man, I love that 70s show.
but yeah, I feel like, people come away, they think about how cool Fight Club is and Anarchy and how like Tyler Durden is like this ultimate male. It's like, no, Tyler Durden represents the worst of us.
Yeah.
And I think you missed the point. You can idolize what Brad Pitt looks like in this movie,
And I will.
because nobody loves Brad Pitt more than men. Nobody idolizes Brad Pitt more than other men.
Yeah.
And you look at his physical perfection in this movie, and you talk about the male gaze, like it's Brad Pitt.
Yeah. Preach, brother.
Anyway, that was tangent. I forget what I was talking about. I just got sidetracked.
You just got lost in the pit sauce. You don't even know where you are right now.
But no, to that point, like he represents the absolute worst of humanity and society, and people idolize him for it. And it's scary that's the takeaway that other people get when they watch these things.
As the movie progresses, as the book progresses, the Brad Pitt, Tyler Durden is getting more and more attractive and more flamboyant with his dress and like his appearance and his looks, as the narrator, Edward Norton, is looking worse and worse and worse and worse. So like this Tyler alter ego is thriving while the real person is dying. And I agree. That stuff, I do wonder, like today, like does anyone, really look at Tyler Durden and valorize him? Maybe people still do. Definitely happened with Wolf of Wall Street, like you said. I also think of like Scarface. Like, remember watching MTV Cribs and every person in their theater room has on Scarface, and it's like Tony Montana is not what we're striving for here in life. Tony Soprano is not, the peak of like suburban life. And that's always frustrating. Where it's like, it's like rather than finding healthy ways to deal with their problems, dudes either want to resort to fight clubs, drug dealing, or fantasizing about being a serial killer. Like this is where we're at. How do you feel about the writing style of this book? Do you enjoy this type of writing style?
Yeah, it was fine. It was fine. It was interesting because I feel like in the movie you get a bit more of, Edward being the narrator, Brad being the narrator a little bit, right? Like there's a focus on them, where in here it's very clearly from the Edward Norton character perspective.
Yeah.
With, there's some dialogue obviously that Tyler has, but you don't really jump back and forth in perspectives.
Yeah.
As much, which is, good and bad, right? Depending on what you like. I liked it. I think it was well written. Like I said, my problems with this book were mostly emotional for me.
Yeah.
I liked that it was quick too. We didn't really labor any of these points. He said what needed to be said. He moved on when it was done, and it flowed really nicely, I think.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I finished this in pretty quickly. Like it was like 6 days. Like from I really enjoyed its standpoint. I was reading it fast to like it's not a chunky exercise of a book. I really enjoy this writing style, and even like how this translates, which the movie isn't even as, I feel like, scatterbrained style of writing that the book is. Like the book reminds me of a novel version of Trainspotting, or last year's movie that I talked about on our best of Kneecap, where it's like this spastic, incomprehensible storytelling that is like quick and jumping around. And like you said, it's moving from scene to scene to scene, and it's not like belaboring sitting in one place too long. And in a way, it kind of like makes you feel like you're on drugs a little bit, like as you're like trying to like keep up with what's happening. And for some reason, I just love that. I don't know why. The style. It just keeps me engaged, and I feel like because I have to think a little bit about what's going on now and where we're at, I don't know. It just keeps me more locked in. Before we go into the movie, would you recommend this to people to read?
I don't know.
Yeah,
It's I think there are like the message needs to be heard, read, but it's pretty dark.
yeah,
And if that is not your cup of tea, then you probably, even though it's short, you would probably labor through this. So I think I don't know if I can say I recommend the book.
yeah. I would say if you're a person who enjoys reading, this is going to be the dumbest statement I've ever made. If you enjoy reading, read this book. But if I think what really worked for me too with this was that it has probably been, I don't know, I would say 6-ish years since I just sat down and watched start to finish Fight Club. And while I've seen this movie a lot and I know scenes pretty well, the book was really fun to read from the standpoint of I knew where we were going, and it was fun to pick up the clues along the way of the reality of this situation. Like that made it a really interesting read for me I forget what the first line of the book is, but it's like he is spelling out from the first line, you know, that Tyler is our narrator. And that stuff is just like, I found like really enjoyable to just like read this already knowing the twist.
That's fair. That's a good
So
point.
I'd say like if you really like this movie but you haven't watched it in a while, like maybe check out the book. Like just give it a
Okay.
read and then watch the movie again and see how you feel about it.
You know what's funny is I read the book and I couldn't for the life of me figure out how people didn't know from like chapter 1. And I was like, "Oh." And then you get through it all and you're like, "This is like I even know the twist and I think this is like really well done." You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
there's yeah, you're right. Like, it's so funny because you go back and you read it or you watch it again and it feels telegraphed, but
Yeah.
nobody knew.
Nobody.
We didn't know.
What is crazy is that Chuck P, not saying it, revealed that when he wrote the book originally, he did not actually know that Tyler and the narrator were the same person until he was 2/3 of the way through writing the story.
I
At
believe
which
that.
point he noticed that they acted together as one person and chose to finish the story as such. That sounds a little like interview bullshit to me. Like there's a little whiff of it. Like I'm getting a scent that I'm like, do I really believe this? I'm going to choose to believe Chucky here, but that's pretty crazy and cool if he finished it that way. Um, Background on the movie, I'll keep this real quick. Rights were purchased for $10,000. Solo by Fox 2000 Pictures. Was shopped around a lot to many directors before they gave it to David Fincher, who was reluctant after his experience with Fox after Alien 3. This movie was hated upon release by critics. Absolutely hated. Rosie O'Donnell also on her show spoiled it because she said how destructive this movie was. Everyone hated it. Brad Pitt and Edward Norton went to the premiere. I think it was in Venice, and people were booing and walking out. And when the movie finished, Norton said that Brad Pitt turned to him and said, "That's the best movie I'm ever going to be in." Like, meanwhile, all these people are like walking out. Um, So this was really hated initially, and then it was similar to a lot of other things we've talked about. Whether it's like a critical or a box office failure at first, gets reclaimed at a certain point, and its message gets understood. And then, like we talked about, I mean, this just took off in terms of like the cult dude movie of all time. Um, how do you feel about Fight Club? We've talked about it a lot at a high level, maybe not even at a high level for the movie, but do you like the movie Fight Club?
Yeah, it's good. I mean, it's very David Fincher,
Yeah.
right? The quintessential darkness of the movie. I mean, from start to finish, it feels David Fincher. I think it was acted brilliantly.
Hmm.
Again, not my favorite performance from either one of them, but it's like the lowest performance is rated an A, so
Yeah.
the best are A pluses. You know what I mean? Like it's that
Yeah.
kind of thing. Uh, I think I didn't appreciate it, at least the message, probably those first few times, but the older I get, the more I appreciate the message of the movie. And the more we talk about things and the more I understand about cinema and movie making, the more I can appreciate the care and detail that went into this movie, which makes it an excellent piece of like cinema.
Totally. I agree. Also, if you want to hear more thoughts on David Fincher, go listen to our The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo podcast. I think we talk about him a lot there, I think.
Yeah.
So we won't get into it as much here. I have like a weird feeling talking about this at a high level, different than Shawshank, because like that was my first time watch. Where like this, it's like I have lived with this movie for so long and I've heard so many people talk about it that there's a little bit of a self-consciousness. I'm like, how much is there to say at this point about Fight Club in terms of just like it being a great movie? Like it feels like I'll just fall on platitudes. But I think when I try to like boil it down to like what I love about this, it it has that like propulsion technology like of a movie where it's like it feels like it's just pushing you from scene to scene to scene, and you don't really know where you're going, but everywhere you get kind of makes sense and feels right and feels exciting, and it's just like dragging you along as the viewer to the end on this journey, and then it ends and you're just like, oh my god, like thank God, can I just like pass out too with them in this building as it explodes, because it's exhausting. Um, and I just really like that. And I think it's like a huge feat. And you hit on it where like making movies is like the ultimate group project. And everyone played their part well in this,
Yes.
like top to bottom. Like I don't think that even, cat, like there was not a slouch, for me through this entire thing. Like even from the sound and the way the movie looks, like everyone just like did an amazing job. And it leads to like this just very satisfying watch, even if it is making you just question things. And like, it's not like I'm thinking about, am I a lonely male or anything like that? We talked about like, I feel fortunate I have great friendships, but it does make me think like, have I bought in like to too much like consumerism stuff? Like, do I own too many things? Like,
Yeah.
I definitely think about that as I watch this, and like the points are
Yeah.
prescient for me. So it still works.
One thing I forgot to add from a storytelling perspective, and I think we talk about this a lot in American Psycho, so I won't labor this point,
Yeah.
but there's a lot of, mental dialogue, like internal dialogue
Hmm.
in the book. And it's really hard to, in a show don't tell type scenario, which is
Yeah.
a movie. I think the way they did it in a limited fashion at very pointed moments where there was some internal dialogue that was, overlaid over what was happening, but they also backed it up with showing you something.
Yeah.
Like, for example, when he first is going back to the office beat up and talking about how after Fight Club, like nothing there seems important. You can't even hear what's going on. And as he's saying that, you see his boss talking to him, but you don't hear any of that. And it's just this
Yeah.
dead sound. I think it's really nice and really worked well here because it was
Hmm.
used sparingly and well timed and coupled with some sort of visual.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that's a great point because I doing this podcast together, it's like you think you have feelings or opinions on things, and then as the more we consume, like religiously here and then talk about it, I'm like questioning my own original opinions, which was I do not like what is it called? Like what is it? What is it called?
Narration.
Yeah, narration. Um, there's some over is somehow in the I don't know what I'm talking about here. But we just did it with Shawshank as well,
Mhm.
where I went into this and I was like, I hate these type of movies when they do this. I'm like, it's lazy filmmaking because they can't find a way to visually show me internal monologues without having them be monologues, like by a narrator. And then we have Fight Club, who does an expert job of this as well. I mean, and then we have the best of them all, Twilight, which just really works. And um, but
We haven't gone an episode
I know.
without talking about Twilight since we watched
Since
that.
dude, I Twilight is living rent free, not even in my head, in my life. In my life.
I am so glad I could do that for you.
um, but I don't know. It's just like it. It leads you to like not really know how you feel about things and questions your preconceptions because. And then I'm just sitting here with like dumbass thoughts like, well, when does it work? And I'm like, well, monologues are really great or, narration is really great when it works well. And I'm like, well, no shit. Like, so I'm like wondering what actually works in Fight Club and Shawshank. And I don't know, maybe it's the writing, maybe it's the screenplay, maybe it's what they have to say that it's still showing you, not telling you. I don't know.
It's all of those things,
But it
in my
works.
opinion.
It works. It's really great.
I
It's a
think
great way to tell the story.
it's the perfect way to separate good storytellers from bad storytellers because good narration adds something to the story. Bad narration is because they can't figure out how to show you what they're
Yeah.
trying to do.
Yeah. Um, Big plot beats. What do you want to hit on with this movie in terms of plot and how they take this story we have and convert it into the movie form? There's things I want to talk. I don't know, like the twist, Project Mayhem, the hints of Tyler. Like, where do you want to saddle into this conversation?
Yeah, I mean, first, I think I said it earlier, but this movie is like a 90% true adaptation.
Yeah,
I mean,
very faithful.
adaptation. Sorry. It's, I mean, very, very faithful
Mhm.
to the point where I was like getting to the end of the movie and I was like, or the end of the book, and I was like, did they change more than one thing?
Yeah,
They did. Spoiler. But should we talk about what's different? I think that's a good
yeah,
way to hit it because I think people are so familiar with the story. Let's just talk about what's different. One, Marla is not storing fat at Tyler's house in the movie. So in
yeah,
the book, basically, Marla is her mom is getting liposuction and she's storing the fat in Tyler's freezer and then using it for her own like injections.
yeah.
That whole subplot got cut out. Do you have any thoughts on that one? Did you like that? Did you not like that in the book? Were you expecting that?
Um, I wasn't expecting it in the book. I guess if I was to say like, what is the one-to-one change? Instead, I think in the movie we have the scene where they break into the liposuction facility and they steal the fat, which I forget if we were eating at the time when we watched this, but when that bag of fat get pulled out of the vat and then breaks on the barbed wire, dude, I was gagging, like legitimately gagging. I think I was eating pizza, which kind of looked like fat now on top of the dough. Dude, I'm just not good with I'm such a baby. I'm so squeamish. Hated that stuff. I I kind of liked the movie version better, and I think this is a case where I really love the book, but even Chuck said that he's like he thinks the movie is a better version of his story, and I don't know if agree with that in all of the changes, maybe. But I thought for this one, it makes more sense than just like Marla is storing her mom's fat, and that's what they start using for the soap, or at
Yeah.
least the match strike moment. I don't know.
Yeah,
What do you
I
think?
agree. It adds another, layer of commentary to the human condition. But I
Yeah,
think by taking that out, and then they also beefed up Marla's role in the movie and her importance to, Tyler.
great
And I
change for
think
me.
that was a fantastic decision.
Yeah,
And it worked on a lot of levels, and it added a lot of depth to her character that I felt may have been missing in the book.
I mean, Helena Bonham Carter is also just like she's lights out
She's
in this movie for me.
badass.
Yeah,
She's lights out in everything.
she is. Yeah, we always saying as we were watching this, I was like, man, I feel like I wish she was in more things. And like she's been in a lot of movies, but I just want her in more movies. And I feel like probably because she was doing Harry Potter movies for a few years and married to Tim Burton and doing all of those movies, that
Yeah.
like I feel like we didn't get as much of a diverse filmography during the 2000s as I would have hoped. Um, Other changes. Yeah, I was thinking about the goals of Project Mayhem change a little bit. It's a little more centralized in the book, where I believe in the book they're just trying to blow up that one building and knock it into the like art museum or natural history museum or something.
Natural history, yeah.
And in the movie, they expand this a little bit more to this anti-capitalist sentiment of they're targeting these credit card buildings to wipe out, the debt,
Because
of
that's how that
people.
works.
Yeah, I guess that's how that were maybe in the 90s, I don't know. But so there was a little bit of an expansion into the aims of Project Mayhem. I think it works for the movie that it's not just like let's do this one building, that there's a little more to the goals, even if they're maybe not fully thought out. I don't know. Any Project Mayhem thoughts on that one?
I do like how in the movie they took Project Mayhem from just true like anarchy because of his mental illness to there's a pointed goal.
Yeah.
I think that tells a better story in the visual medium.
Yeah.
I think it worked in the book. It was actually the last I listened to the book. I didn't actually read it like a physical copy. So the last like hour of the book is when things really started to change, and I thought it got really interesting at that point.
Hmm.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah, no, it was a good change. I think you needed because in a movie, I feel like you have to be more direct and pointed, and they
Yeah.
did that, and it worked really well.
Yeah. I'd agree. I feel like the other big thing we got to talk about is like the the reveal of Durden, and I think that these are carried out pretty similarly from book to movie.
Yeah,
And this was, I feel like I have this part of my brain that still tells me that the reveal in the movie doesn't happen until that garage footage.
hmm
Because I think as a kid, I was just too stupid to understand what was going on until I visually saw the footage of Tyler not there. Like, I just did not get it when I was like 11 years old
well,
until
yeah,
then. And so in my mind, I still think the reveal comes then, when really it's, before that, all through when he's traveling around the country and, he calls Marla and she calls it, like, all of that is kind of more of the slow rollout of what's going on.
yeah.
Um, did you feel that the book or the movie had differences in kind of the breadcrumb laying? Like it was more obvious in one or the other? Or do you think they both kind of really followed the same trajectory of the reveal?
I I think they both followed the same trajectory but it's really hard to say because we both have known what happens for so long that reading the book, we're looking for those things.
Looking for it. Yeah.
But I think that if I had gone in reading this book, not having any preconceived notion of what happens, I would find out exactly when I was supposed to, exactly when Chuck wanted me to, the same way I did in the movie.
Yeah. Yeah, I'd agree with that. You know, it is, I think it's like the best form of storytelling where it feels so obvious that it's like, how did I not know? How did I not know?
Right.
Like, I was just cracking up reading some of the lines in the beginning of the book when he's like, I know this because Tyler knows this. And it's like, it's right there, like the whole time.
Right there, literally like on page 1.
Yeah. I was like, and I think I wrote down the first sentence of the book is like, Tyler gets me a job as a waiter. After that, Tyler's pushing a gun in my mouth and saying, the first step to eternal life is you have to die. And it's just like, from the jump, like we're just hearing beat over our heads how he is Tyler. And it's great. It really works, I think, in both. I love like the lines of like, you know, he relates it back to the plane crash when he meets Tyler in terms of rolling out, that he's realizing he's like, you know, the cabin has lost pressure. And then he calls Marla, she calls him Tyler, and he's like, you know, whatever, something about the plane crashing. And that's the scene when he meets Tyler in the beginning, is after the fake plane crash in the beginning. Like, damn, they were cooking here with this. It was really good. Do you have any favorite hints? Things that stuck out?
The one in the movie where Tyler hits the car and nothing happens, and then our narrator hits the car and the car alarm goes off. Should have been a dead giveaway.
Yep.
Because he hits it with what, a baseball bat? Like, it's going off the first time you hit it.
Yeah. Yeah, there's so many. I think that is also why this is a just dude cult movie, is because the amount of YouTube videos out there that are probably compiled of the hints that Norton is Tyler Durden. That's just like the stuff that just we eat up. We eat that shit up. And they have so many examples of it in this movie. The one you just cited, the one when the airport valet lends them the car and he addresses the narrator as Mr. Durden and looks just at him. When they're entering Lou's Tavern and everyone acknowledges Edward Norton and nobody says a word to Tyler as he comes through. There's just so many scenes like that. You know, when he's getting all the free stuff, you know, at the restaurants, and
it's
you know, everyone's asking like, is this a test, Mr. Durden? Like it's just so good. Do you want to talk about the change to the end? Because in the book, Marla and one of these support groups save the narrator, and the thing he was exploiting at the beginning of this book becomes his salvation in the path to killing Tyler Durden. And he lives after this, and there's an afterword in the book where I think he's in a mental institution, he is realizing that even though he has killed Tyler Durden, that the seeds of what he has started have just infested everything in life. And it's kind of a real trip ending of the book, where in the movie, Marley just gets dragged there from Project Mayhem. You know, he has shot himself, you know, in the mouth, killing Tyler, and the buildings start to explode and crumble, and that's our end. Was the end of the book a surprise for you after it had been so beat for beat?
It was. It really was.
Yeah.
When things started to diverge from the movie, I found myself like gripped.
Yeah.
More, because I couldn't just kind of listen to it and know exactly what was happening. I had to really, really focus on it because I was like, oh my God, this is completely different.
Yeah.
I really like, okay, that's what I will say about the book versus the movies. I really like having both of those endings.
Me too.
I think that is I said there was no value add. I lied. There is a value add. It's the last, from like chapter 21 on
Yeah.
in the book. It's pretty much nothing like the movie. Like, I mean, it is, but like,
Yeah.
what's actually happening is very different. The meaning is the same.
Mm-hmm.
Very worth it. Very good. Very different feelings at the end. When I don't know how you felt,
Yeah.
but I felt very differently at the end of the book than I did at just like the emotional impact of it hit me differently.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I'd be curious to know what the different emotions were for you. Where end of movie, it's kind of melancholic for me. And maybe that is driven by the Pixies' Where Is My Mind song and just like everything exploding around me. And you know what? I'm just going to go down with the ship here. I'm going to go down with Tyler and it's just over finally. Whereas the book, it's like you think you're out, you think you've killed Tyler, but Project Mayhem is like still going on and he's still kind of like not really safe in the book, it feels like to me. And it's a little more trippy and that's kind of the different emotions I felt.
Yeah. There's definitely more of a feeling of fear, to your point,
Yeah.
in the book. And you're like, oh, this just started.
Yeah.
Totally agree with you. I think that there's more closure in the movie than there is in the book.
Yeah. But there's more consequences in the book to what he's done, which I think is also good. And that's why I love having both.
Yeah. Or are there more consequences, or are we shown the consequences more? Because
True.
I mean, he did
True.
bring down all those buildings.
But I guess, yeah, I guess there will be consequences to what he's done, but there are no consequences for him
Yeah.
in the movie. But yeah, it'd be interesting to know what happens the next day in Fight Club, the movie. I would like to know. Is there anything more you want to say on the cast of this that we haven't already?
No, not really.
Who's
I
your best cast person in this movie?
think Brad Pitt.
Yeah.
I went back and forth on that a lot, but I settled on Brad Pitt just because of the lasting impact that the Brad Pitt's performance has had for this movie.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. Even though there's a part of me that's like Helena Bonham Carter adds so much to being the hinge between narrator and Tyler Durden that I think just makes the movie sing on a whole new level. But Brad Pitt is he's just a star in this. Like there's just no two ways about it. And probably I don't know if people still feel this way, but at least in it was just easily that's like this is his most iconic role ever. Even if you may not feel it's his best performance ever sometimes, or you like other movies of his better, like it's his most iconic role, Tyler Durden.
That's fair.
Yeah, I mean, and we said before too, the whole supporting cast. I mean, Meatloaf as Robert Paulson, we have Jared Leto in here. The mechanic is the dad from Iron Claw. Like it's everyone just played their roles well. The B-list Sopranos guy who owns Lou's Tavern, missed his casting call or maybe just came right over from casting for Sopranos and just was still in character. I don't know. One funny thing that I want to mention on the cast is Pitt and Edward Norton were actually drunk during the hitting the golf ball scene. And
really?
Yeah, they were apparently just loaded and smacking golf balls around.
No way.
And sailing them into directly into the side of the catering truck on set.
That was like the real catering truck.
Yeah, which is
that
funny.
is insane.
Yeah.
How do we get I need more detail. How do we get there?
I don't know. And is this true? No idea. I read this on IMDb trivia, so I'm not going to check my sources. But if you want to go check my sources, I'm just going to choose to believe that all of this happened. You want to? What's your favorite scene in this movie?
Mm.
If you
I
need me to,
really
yeah,
like
go for it.
the scene where Brad Pitt is riding around that house on a tiny tricycle.
Yeah, before or after the nunchucks that he's doing in the one bedroom.
Same time. Aren't they
Yeah.
like back to back
Yeah.
kind of scenes?
Yeah. I mean, as two kids in elementary school who did karate, the nunchuck scene spoke to
S
us.
tier. Is that your favorite, the nunchuck scene?
No.
Or do you have something a little more profound?
I don't know. This is one of those movies. I know it's a good thing we're covering when I am writing down the scenes of the movie that are contenders for me. And I
Yeah.
have written down like 12 scenes. Like that's when I know we're in a good spot. I think my favorite scene is probably the first night of the underground fight club. And
Ooh,
I
okay.
just love it. It's so iconic to me.
It is.
Brad Pitt dishing out the rules, you know, and it's still, Project Mayhem is not Project Mayhem yet, and things are still kind of low key. And I love that first insight into what this is and what it's going to become. I just think it's such an iconic scene. I love it. Low key funny scene that like I really wanted to put is when Project Mayhem goal is you have to go start a fight with someone and lose. Dude, that scene cracks me up every time. When they're spraying people with water walking down the sidewalk, when he's trying to pick a fight with the car salesman, or when Bitch Tips Bob is just trying to like ruffle people in the lobby of that big building.
That is a good scene.
Like the music changes. We go from like the Fincher techno, like drum and bass style to like this like almost like circus music that's going on. Like it's such a good scene.
It adds a nice moment of levity
Totally.
into this otherwise serious movie.
Yeah. We usually talk about underrated scenes, and I don't know if this is an underrated scene to me. And I've been working through my feelings on it. Where in the book, my hands down favorite part of the book is when the narrator gets picked up in the car with the mechanic chapter, and they're driving. I thought Chuck was just cooking there in his writing, and you're realizing, I think for me, the first time of how much control the narrator has lost over what is going on, because they're not really answering to the whims of the narrator anymore. They're answering to the ideas of this guy, Tyler Durden, and testing him now. And you're also wondering, like, what is real and what is fake? And you don't quite know yet, if this is a first experience that he is Tyler Durden. And I just love that scene so much. They changed it a little bit in the movie where the mechanic is not driving. Brad Pitt is driving and having this conversation with Edward Norton, which has this whole new layer of like, nobody's actually there with him in the front seat. And, these two guys in the back. And what is the meaning of, what does your life mean? What do you want to do before you die? I love that scene. So I loved it in the book. And I think that is the one scene that I like really preferred in the book over the movie.
Okay.
But it's still a really good movie scene. Like the Brad Pitt and Norton dynamic there is still so good.
I think their dynamic gets underrated sometimes.
Totally.
Together.
Yeah. For some reason, I thought you were going to say your favorite scene was the absolute horrible first punch Norton has on Brad Pitt when he like slaps him in the ear.
He just
which was a note from David Fincher, where before shooting the scene, he called Norton over and he whispered into his ear to slap Brad Pitt in the ear, because Brad Pitt thought he was going to like do a swing and miss type of thing. And he actually just walked up and punch slapped him in the ear, and Brad Pitt's like reaction was completely genuine. And like if you watch the movie, you can see Norton like kind of laughing after he does it. Yeah.
I'm gonna go rewatch that scene
Yeah.
because
Like
I didn't
Edward
pick
Norton,
up on him laughing, but yeah.
unless he was faking it, the dude cannot punch. Like his punches are just so bad in the movie.
So bad.
As the narrator.
You get that a lot in sports movies where these actors are trying to pretend that they're good at the sport for whatever sport, and it's just an abomination. And this kind of feels like that, but it also works here
Yeah.
because Brad Pitt is better at it.
Yeah.
And so like Tyler is better at it than our narrator.
Yeah.
So I actually think it works. Maybe it was intentional.
It does really work. I think, yeah, I think you're so right there. I'll move on from scenes here, but I just have to do, given the end of the movie, it's an iconic movie, and the song, it just all works so well. Them standing there, the way it looks, holding hands, just perfect. Like
Yeah.
when the narrator says, "You've met me at a very strange time in my life," like it always makes me laugh of just like the understatement of that all.
Yeah.
It's just so good. All right, big question here. We talked about how this is an iconically quotable movie, some that have stood the test of time. What is your favorite Fight Club quote?
The first rule of Fight Club is don't talk about Fight Club.
Yeah.
Second rule of Fight Club, don't talk about Fight Club.
Yeah. I mean, I think that it's the most pervasive.
Iconic.
It's the one that's lived on. I don't know. I mean, it probably has to be top 10 movie quotes ever. Not in terms of like the profoundness.
I will say it's probably in the top 10 most quoted. It might be number 2 behind Very Nice.
Yeah, any Borat. Yeah, it's true. Also, maybe another dude movie.
That is very much a dude movie.
Yeah, Borat, Fight Club, The Godfather, Twilight. Yeah, I think it's got to be that one. I mean, the Robert Paulson scene is great, and I think even that lived on in the culture for a while, where like he would just, chant people's names, like his name was, whoever. On the read and the rewatch, the sticking feathers up your butt does not make you a chicken. Just got a good giggle out of me.
It's true. It's true.
It's true.
It's true.
Yeah, I
tried it, did not become a chicken.
Did not work. Yeah, still a seal. Actually, I didn't have anything prepared for this one, but do you have any nitpicks with this movie? Anything that just did not work for you, or just small annoyances?
No, because I think so many things were done well that I was nothing's jumped out at me as a nitpick. Did you have some?
I don't really. I think my only big note was the mechanic scene, and that is the tough thing where it's I'm happy I have both because, like you said, that Pitt Norton chemistry is so good in that scene that it would have been weird in a movie if that was someone else.
Yeah.
But for the book, I just loved the conversation he had with the mechanic in the car. So I'm just happy I'm happy to have both. And it's probably bad podcasting to just be like, no, I love this movie. I don't have any problems with it, but it's kind of how it is.
We do that a lot though, so it's fine.
We've been on a run where we've just really liked the things we're talking about. I'm trying to remember the last thing that we had big issues with. It's just been a while. We've been covering some good stuff.
Even Twilight was us gushing about it.
All in good fun.
I didn't like Nosferatu all that much.
That's true. That's true. That was probably the last one where we had a little bit more bones to pick.
I am pumped for Mickey 17 though.
Yeah, very excited to go see that. Also just, man, we just Parasite. I'm so excited to see what this director does again. I love Bong Joon-ho. Who's the real villain of this movie or this story for you? What is the biggest problem that we are trying to tackle with this?
The biggest villain is everybody who misses the point. Oh, the Andrew Tate stands in the world.
What if we came on here and I had missed the point? would have been a really awkward conversation. I would say this movie makes me think about like the corporatism because
Yeah.
we are so infested with it. We are getting funneled ads in every aspect of our life. I'm just so sick of it. And that is like one thing that has just so ramped up since this movie when the internet was still in its infancy to where we are now, where like everything is an ad. Everything is to make money.
That point in particular has only become more ingrained in society.
Yeah.
To what you're saying, I completely agree with you that if that movie had come out now, I
Yeah.
can only imagine what that part of it would have looked like.
Yeah. Yeah, where a slight difference. Well, I think we're still a workaholic culture and society. I think there has been some shifts in the acknowledgement of work-life balance to, Tyler saying in this, like, you are not your job. Your job does not define you. I don't think that has gotten worse from this time. I think our work lives are
Fair.
We are more connected to our work because of technology, but I think there is more of an acknowledgement amongst younger generations that life outside of work is very important. And we haven't solved how to make that a bigger piece of our life, but I think there's an acknowledgement of it.
Yeah. I mean, other countries are doing a better job moving to 4-day
Yeah.
work weeks or trying different things.
Yeah. Who won the movie for you?
I think Brad Pitt and Ed Norton won
Yeah.
Fight Club. Just the chemistry between them, where it landed in their careers, I think it was just a fantastic moment for both of those individuals.
Yeah. I'd agree with that. It feels like Brad Pitt almost needed this the most. Like, I felt like Norton had a few like really, really great 90s movies, and it's not that Brad Pitt didn't. But Brad Pitt was on a little bit of a weird spell with some of the releases that had happened just prior to this. And I think that this just catapulted him into the 2000s Pitt we knew
Okay.
and set up, our Ocean's 11, type of movies and the star
Yeah.
that we have today. Because I think Fincher was already a great filmmaker.
Yeah.
And
He had just had 7 come out, right?
yeah, with Brad Pitt, which Seven is probably, I definitely like Seven more than Fight Club, which is saying a lot. Seven is just an incredible movie.
Morgan Freeman.
Yeah, Morgan. Yeah, combo of our past 2 episodes. But yeah, I think you're spot on. The chemistry wins this movie. If that doesn't work, we're all falling apart. Anything else? What would you give Fight Club out of 25?
As an adaptation, like a 23.5, 24. I mean,
Yeah.
it was beat for beat. It was done really well. Not a lot to fault it for.
Yeah. Yeah, I'd agree. I'm like a 24 out of 25. I think I gave it a 4.5 on Letterboxd. It's one of those movies that I really love and I consider extremely great. Doesn't quite reach my absolute peak of my favorite movies, but it's like in that second tier.
Okay.
And I've just seen it so many times in my life. I know every scene. It's like at the point where you find new things you like about it because you've watched it so much. It's a great movie. It's like you said, it's a great adaptation. Like they really did a good job with converting the story, keeping it faithful, but giving us new as well. I think with that, we can wrap it up. I mean, not only thanks for listening, next episode, I think will be the Mickey 17 that releases in theaters next week. I'm about halfway through the book, thinking of pausing soon so I can see the movie, do the Nick Hinkson method, have a fresh movie experience, and then maybe like the day after wrapping up the last, because it's not that long of a book either, and it's huge font. Wrapping up the last like 80 to 100 pages like on the weekend or something.
Yeah, I'm not doing that because I can't put the book down. I have like 50 pages left, so I'm just going to knock it out because I'm just loving it. So
Yeah.
real excited
Interesting
for this
premise.
one.
I did not know anything about the book heading into it. And what it's about, I was not anticipating in terms of like, what is the driving, ignition of the story.
It's cool.
Yeah, I'm excited to see the movie. I can't wait. Robert Pattinson back in our lives.
Thank God.
Yeah. So you know what we're going to be talking about in some form or fashion the next episode. Yeah, we'll also be putting out another episode on Severance. In the meantime, I'm sure as well. If you have any thoughts or questions, you can reach out to us at rewatchplaypod@gmail.com. You can follow us on Instagram at rewatchplaypodcast. Follow us on all your major platforms, 5 stars only, or we will start a fight with you and lose. And yeah, I don't know. I got nothing else to say. What about you?
No, nothing.
No. Thanks for listening, everybody. Thanks, Nick, for joining me. Until next time, everybody.